Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you all?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sir. Alhamdulillah, good, sir.
Good
Fine.
afternoon, Badan. Nice meeting you after 2 days.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was nice. Thank you. It was very nice. I am in Dubai.
Good, good. Over there, I heard that you have a lot of fun.
Sorry, I did not hear you.
I'm saying that over there in Dubai, I heard that there is a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Maybe comparatively, I think you are in KSA. Comparatively, KSA, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very good. Are you coming here sometime?
Never.
So if you are coming to Dubai, please, you have my number, no? Please
Sure.
call.
Thank you
call
so
me.
much. So nice of you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
nice.
I'm a security manager in a security company of reputed company in UAE.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
So you can, whenever if a chance to come here, just let me know that.
Sure. Thank you so much. So nice.
Thank
So
you.
nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I guess the other participants will be joining us soon, and almost most of the participants have joined here. So what we are going to do, we will be starting now. We will be starting from the revision, so that we would be having an overview regarding the previous lecture, and then we will be proceeding for the next one. So first thing come first, let us start discussing our unit 7 or Thursday lecture was element 7, unit IG2, which we were discussing about the chemical and biological agents. What were chemical and what were biological agents, where we discussed different forms, classification, and health risk from hazardous substances. And what were different forms of chemical agents. For example, we are having solid, liquid, and gas. In the solid, we are having dust and fibers. In gases, we are having fumes as well. In liquid, we are having mist and vapors. And then we move to the biological agents. What are biological agents? Like bacteria, viruses, fungi. After that, or fungi. After that, we move to the effect, acute and chronic health effects of both chemical and biological agents. What are acute effects? These are immediate effects. Chronic effects are basically long-term effects. After that, we move to the classification of chemical hazardous to health. Three main classifications are there. Physiochemical effects, that physically what are the effects you are having on your body, and then health effects internally, if we talk about physiochemical, these are all about the safety effects. Health effects are all about the internal or inner well-being effects, like toxic, carcinogenic. And environmental effect is all about the surroundings in which you are living or in which you are working. Then we discussed about the effects of chemical hazardous to health. What are the effects? For example, we can have acute toxicity, we can have skin corrosion or irritation, we can have serious eye damage or eye irritation, we can have respiratory or skin sensitization, then we can have germ cell mutagenicity, carcinogenity, reproductive toxicity, specific target organ toxicity, then aspiration hazard. Okay, we are having all these. And then we also discussed about the sensitizing agents of chemical, like as a chemical as sensitizing agents. So for example, they can cause some kind of respiratory diseases or some kind of skin diseases, including the dermatitis, which is a skin disease in which your skin become dry, flaky, or cracked. So this is what we discussed in forms and different classes of hazardous chemical, as well as their adverse impact on our health. Next, we move to assessment of health risk, that in case if we have to go for the health risk assessment, what we will be doing. There we discussed something regarding how can a chemical or biological organism enter the body. Basically, we discussed the routes of entry, and then next we discussed which one is the highest risk route of entry and why. We discussed about it, and basically we got that there are four main routes of entry. One of them is inhalation through breathing, ingestion. Once you are eating something, the dust can settle up there, or the chemical can settle up there on the food, and you eat that. Then absorption through skin, that through skin pores it can get absorbed. Then injection through the skin, in case if we can have needle stick, in case if we can have cuts and grazes and bites. Among these, as I mentioned on that, the needle stick is something like you are intentionally putting something inside your body, okay, or otherwise accidentally, if someone's needle is over there, already used needle, or which is dirty, or which is having some kind of chemical already placed over there, and you can get uh, pinched by a needle, then in that scenario that could be considered as unintentional. Regarding the needle stick, we'll be discussing today about the bloodborne pathogens, what bloodborne pathogens are, how can we protect ourselves. So these are the main routes of entry. Among all these main routes of entry, we agreed that breathing or the inhalation was the best route for the chemical to get enter inside our body. Okay, and that is the easiest way for a chemical to get enter into our body. Then we discussed about the defense mechanism of human body. There are two defense mechanism. One is internal defense mechanism. We call it cellular, and the next one is in external defense mechanism, which we call superficial. If we talk about internal mechanism, like starting from your sneeze reflection, then filtration in the nasal cavity, then mucociliary escalator are over here, then macrophages are over here, then inflammatory response, that your lungs are giving some kind of responses regarding the germs. After that, we discussed about the external defense system, in which we discussed about the skin defenses, starting from the waterproof barrier, and then the defense mechanism in case if the cells get damaged, that how they can replace them. For example, replenishment of dead cells, and there are some kind of waxy liquid which appears over here. Then inflammatory response, if you are hit by something, then the skin gets swollen. Okay, that is what we call inflammatory response. And then after some days, maybe some hours, depending upon the harm, you are getting recovered. So these are the main things we discussed about in module 2, about the routes of entry, about the mechanism of defense, and internal and external as well. Then we move to our then we move to the assessment of health risk. We discuss the 5 steps of health of the risk assessment: identification of the hazard, identify who might be harmed and how it is, then evaluate the risk and decide on the precautions, or identify the hazard, identify the additional control measures. Then we record the significant findings or the actions we have to take, and then we go for the review. So over here we did the same. First, we go to the identification of the hazard. Okay, and over here we discuss that identification of the hazard would be in different forms, like starting from the hazardous nature of the substance, potential ill health effects, physical form, routes of entry, quantity, concentration, number of people who can get harmed, the frequency of exposure and duration of exposure, control measures. Then regarding the information regarding the chemical, we discussed that we are having 3 different ways to get the information about that chemical. One is from the product label, on product label, like over here. Okay, then guidance documents are there, then safety data sheet or the material safety data sheet are those uh, sources of information which are basically telling us or informing us that in case if we are having chemical, what is that, how hazardous that chemical is. Then we discussed about the limitation of information based on these three sources of information. Then we discussed that in case if we have to go for the monitoring of hazardous substance, why it is important, what are the two main factors uh, which are focusing when we are going for the monitoring. How do we monitor using some kind of sensors? Okay, and when we are monitoring, what are the what is the role of monitoring and role of hazardous substance monitoring. Then there were some kind of limitation. We discussed that for example, over here, the accuracy of the result time to time, then variation in personal exposure. If someone goes over there, then gets back. What about the personal susceptibility? What about the standard, which are not same for all? In case if there is something which is get mixed with the other chemical, then about the exposure, we don't have any clues regarding that. So these are the things we discussed in our module 2. Then we move to the occupational exposure limit, that as an employee, as a worker, if you are going to get expose yourself with some kind of chemical which can be inhaled, okay, in one time, which we call one dose, we call it workplace exposure limit. What is that? How do we prevent ourselves? What are different occupational exposure limit? Mainly we are having two. One is short term, one is long term. What are these? We discussed for short term 15 minutes exposure limit, for long term 8 hours exposure limit. Guys, over here, remember that whenever we are defining for STEL or LTEL, this is
अरे,
this is
चलिए नहीं गया क्यों आप
what I was. When we are defining about the LTEL or when we are defining about the STEL, this is not only for one day. Remember that considering the LTEL, this one, okay, we can stay at this limitation. We are defining the threshold limit values, but it doesn't mean that below the threshold limit, you are not going to get damage. Means if for H2S, if we are defining that 10 ppm is the value at which H2S is going to harm you, it doesn't mean that 10 ppm, that 10 ppm is basically the maximum or the threshold value. Less than 10 ppm, we also can get harm. And you must stay there. These limits are basically, yes, these limits are basically defining based on the principle that you can get exposed to that chemical, but for a limited period of time. That is 8 hours in case of LTEL and 15 minutes in case of STEL. And when we can get exposed, it means that you don't need to use any breathing apparatus. But you might have heard that client would be asking you that no, in case even if it is 1 ppm of H2S, for example, stop the job. What is the reason? Because everyone is having different susceptibility regarding the chemical exposure. So it is very important to protect all the people who are working over there. And yeah, as I mentioned, that threshold limit is 10 ppm. It doesn't mean less than that we will not be getting harm. Then yeah, this is done. And limitation of exposure, we already discussed about it. And then sorry, over here we discussed that for workplace exposure limits, we are having different names in different standards. Okay, what do we have to memorize? What do we have to keep in our mind? That whatever the limit defined, it should be defined as per the SDS. Okay, one thing. Second thing is, whatever the name is going to be chosen, we will be consulting with SDS and we will be choosing the one which is mentioned already over there on the SDS. Other than this, in case if you are having your local limitations, for example, over here it is mentioned 10 ppm, and in local procedure it is mentioned 5 ppm. So then in that scenario, local procedure, because local procedure is more stringent, so we will go with the local procedure. Okay, and in case in our local procedure it is mentioned 15 and over here is 10, then we will follow this system, because it is all about our susceptibility. So we on the susceptibility we cannot take the risk. Next is we discuss about the control measures, that how do we control the prevent the control why do we need to prevent or control the exposure. Okay, we discussed about it because we want to protect ourselves. Okay, then we discussed the 8 principles of good practice, that how we are going to prevent the occupational exposure with chemicals. Those chemicals could be uh, chemical agent, or those could be the biological agent. These are the eight factors, okay, or 8 principles of good practice as per the KOSH regulation. KOSH is control of substance hazardous to health. And then we start discussing all these one by one, and we discussed basically whenever we are going to control any kind of hazard, we are basically focus, or we basically used to focus on elimination or substitution. Then we move to the engineering control, then administrative control, and then personal protective equipment. So we started from the elimination or substitution process change, then we move to the engineering control, like in some kind of reducing exposure time or enclosure and segregation. We applied the local exhaust ventilation. Then we move to the dilution ventilation. We have seen their benefits and you can say advantages and disadvantages. And after that, we move to the personal protective equipment, that is usually respiratory protective equipment in case of chemical if it becomes airborne. After that, in the respirators, we discussed benefits and limitation of the respirators. Okay, different respirators were there. We discussed about them, and then we discussed what are the main factors we need to keep in mind when we are going to select, use, or if we have to maintain the respiratory protective equipment. We discussed different factors, and we also discussed about the users, that in case if I am the user, what I have to understand, what kind of training do I have to get, what should be included in the training. Okay, then other than the respiratory protection, we are also getting exposed with the chemicals, as we already discussed about the different routes of entry. If we talk about different routes of entry, it means that we need to protect them as well. Like for example, if I'm till now we were protecting only the respiratory route of entry. Okay, now over here we have to protect about the other routes of entry. Like we need to go for the skin protection, we need to go for the eye protection, body protection. Okay, for that purpose we are using the goggles, face shield, or overalls. Then again, in case if it falls, a chemical falls on your body, what about my personal hygiene? Of course, if I am working with the chemical, either I like it or I don't like it, either I am going to go for taking extra kind of precautions, but still there is a chance that it could be on my hand. So it is all about my personal hygiene, if I am washing my hands or not. If I start eating with dirty hands, which are already contaminated with chemical, then what will be the outcome? So this is what we discussed. And then vaccination, we discussed about the vaccination. Different kind of vaccinations are there, which are basically protecting us from different kind of biological agents. Okay, and there were some factors we need to consider regarding the vaccination. For example, if we took the worker consent or not, if we discuss with the worker or not, then what about my immunity all the time? I would be getting the required amount of immunity after the vaccination, yes or no? Some people they get, some they don't. Then false sense of security, that if I will be having this vaccination, like in our COVID vaccination, when we were having the COVID vaccination, we heard that it would be affecting your inheritance, but nothing is there. Okay, or nothing has happened till now, everything is going smooth. People are still spending their life in the same way. Then we move to the health surveillance, which comes at the end. Basically, it is the administrative control, and we do the health surveillance to identify all those guys who are already sick or who became sick once they join us. So it was our health surveillance, and in the health surveillance, when we identify the when we identified some kind of chemicals over there, we tried to bring the exposure as low as reasonably practicable. Okay, after that, we also discussed about some other control measures. Okay, for example, total enclosure of process or handling system, provision of eating, drinking, and smoking, regular cleaning, warning signs, safe storage, handling, and disposal. These are by the way, again, some of the administrative control which administration usually use to not only to only to implement it. They just don't want it to be implemented on the job site, but also they keep monitoring it. So that is why we have to keep all these in our concern. So it was our yesterday's session, lesson. In case if you are having any question, please ask me. Otherwise, we will be proceeding to our today's session. And our today's session, which is about the specific agents. In case if there is any question, please ask me. Question, guys? No? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Adil. Now we are going to move to the specific agents. What are the specific agent? In the specific agent, we are going to discuss some of the agents, chemical or biological, which usually are ignored, and basically these are present on the job site, and most of the time people, they are having very not very much adverse health impact on of course on them, and these are usually being ignored. What are these? Like starting from asbestos, like quartz, like you can say silica, okay, then cement, okay, and these kind of stuff are there. Okay, then some kind of legionella bacteria, leptospira bacteria. What are these? Let us watch all these one by one. First of all, asbestos. What is asbestos? Asbestos is basically naturally occurring mineral fiber used for fire resistant building and legging material. In the earlier time, we were using this asbestos because we wanted to have a proper fire resistant building, or for example, if we are having the pipe installed over there, we were putting it around the pipe because it is very nice heat retardant material, or the fire retardant material. Both terminologies can be used, and it was perfectly making a barrier between heat and the material on which you are going to install it. For example, in the roofs, we were using them. Different type of asbestos we were using. What were those? Those were, first, if you find it in blue form, that would be crocidolite. Brown form, amosite. White would be chrysotile. So these were different asbestos fibers. Basically, you are having, in case if we are having asbestos installed with me right now here, I don't have to worry about anything. But in case if I'm going to renovate, I'm going to break the wall, then it will become airborne. I guess we had discussed about it. So it become airborne, and because it becomes airborne, so it can be inhaled. Once it will be inhaled, of course, it will start giving you some kind of damage. Those who are in the plant construction, they know that we were using the asbestos. In case if they are still using the asbestos or not, how was asbestos used in industry and building, especially in the plant construction? Yes, we are using them. For example, if we are going to make some kind of asbestos cement roof, okay, if we are going to go for the ceiling tiles, fire break walls, floor tiles, down pipes, okay, pipe leggings. So all these are basically those areas where we were using in different oil and gas construction, in different plant construction or refinery construction. We were using the asbestos over there. What were the diseases we were having because of the asbestos? In case if you inhale the asbestos, immediately nothing is going to happen to you, but it is having the chronic effect. As I mentioned, as per your book, perhaps after 10 years you would have these symptoms like asbestosis, lung cancer, mesothelioma. Basically all of these are different level or different kind of lung cancer. Okay, and our here diffuse pleural thickening, in which your walls of your lungs are getting little bit thick. So these are basically different kind of uh, cancers. Okay, different kind of lung cancers. So we are getting all these because of asbestos. Question is how we are going to control it. Control is basically about the control of asbestos regulation 2012, which clearly mentions that awareness of the presence of asbestos by occupiers or the owner. If I am the owner of this house, I should have been informed by the person who is selling out this house to me, or who is going to rent this house to me, that this house is containing asbestos, so that in case if I am going for some kind of uh, renovation in this house, then I would be taking care about it. Then a need for an asbestos management plan. In case if you have to deal with the asbestos in the industry, then what about the management plan? How we are going to uh, work our how we are going to work um, on the equipment or in the construction wherever we are having the asbestos. Maintaining an asbestos register by identifying the location. You are identifying the location, writing them down so that you should not be getting it forget. Record of regular inspections. In case if you are inspecting the building, of course you would be having the inspection regarding some kind of break or the hole in the wall, so that, or in the hole in the ceiling or the roof, so that you should be identifying the occupiers of that building or that area, that we are having asbestos exposure over here. Immediately protect yourself. And monitoring the condition, keep the condition monitoring. Remember, as it is mentioned, and I already have explained you, left alone and undisturbed, asbestos will not cause harm to anyone. If you just leave it on one place and you are not going to touch it, you just installed it, you're not going to touch it. For example, on the roof, on the ceiling, if it will be over there and you are not renovating your ceiling, you are not touching your ceiling, nothing will happen. You are safe, you are protected. But in case if you have to go for the renovation, what we are doing basically, we are using the wet method. What is the meaning of wet method? Whenever I have to work with asbestos, what I will be doing, I will be making the area wet, I will be making the wall wet, I will be making the ceiling wet, so that if it is placed in the ceiling, if it was there in the wall, or if it was wrapped around, or if it was installed around the pipes, whenever I'm going to renovate, I'm going to maintain something. Once I'm going to open the pipe, in case if asbestos is over there, it will be we will be using the wet method, means we'll be putting the water over there, so it will not
Yes.
be becoming airborne.
Yeah. जी अच्छा
So it will not be becoming airborne. Okay, next is bloodborne virus. Bloodborne viruses are those viruses basically, okay, which can be transmitted from blood to blood, you can say. We also have one training with the name bloodborne pathogens. This is the same one. Any virus present in and transmissible by blood. If the virus is with me and it can be transmitted to you through blood. For example, if while you were giving me the first aid, my blood falls on the on your hand, okay, and it get absorbed over there, so my virus will be transferred to you. For example, over here, HIV, which we call it HIV, and the full name is human immunodeficiency virus. and hepatitis virus in case if it is transmittable. Usually we are having hepatitis B and C. These are basically those kind of sicknesses or those kind of illness which are being transmitted in blood and other body fluid. If while you are giving me the first aid sometime, for example, if you are giving the CPR and you don't use the face mask and you give breath mouth to mouth, then these kind of uh, viruses could be transferred to you. Risk to healthcare workers, firefighter, police, waste disposal workers, usually all those workers who are dealing with waste, who are dealing with the other people, who are on a routinely basis coming in contact with the other workers. Okay, and uh, those workers who are coming in contact with the other workers with whom they are in contact, they are usually staying in contact with them during the emergency cases, as it is mentioned, healthcare, firefighter, police, or waste disposal. Then symptoms are jaundice and liver damage, of course, in hepatitis B and C. I'm sure everyone knows about that. In common word, we call it Yarkan. This is one of the common one. We are having it. Then can be a chronic disease. Yes, can be a chronic disease. Immediately may not be appearing, but maybe after some times when it would be in the power, then it would be appearing in your body. Then what are the typical controls for hepatitis? First of all, PPE must be there, gloves, eye protection should be there, disposal of material as a clinical waste. For example, if I am giving first aid to someone, then of course I would be having some kind of material. For example, gloves are there, so I would be disposing them as clinical waste. Prevention of needle stick injuries, that in case if I am going to deal with some kind of hospital waste, then I should be having hand protection, because in case if the needles are over there, which are basically we got them from different after the treatment of different patients, so those needles should not be getting pinched in our body. Okay, then because that could transmit the bloodborne pathogen. And then a decontamination and disinfection immediately. You have to disinfect, means you have to go for good hygienic condition. Then vaccination, as we already agreed that vaccination, yes, it can prevent, it can protect you, but on the other side we are having the adverse impacts. Accident procedures, for example, needle stick injury, we already discussed about this. So these are the bloodborne viruses. Okay, and how we can prevent ourselves, we just how we can protect ourselves, we can prevent ourselves from being infected. So these are the controls. Next, our very common chemical agent is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is basically a gas which is colorless and odorless. Whenever we are talking about carbon monoxide, whenever we are talking about H2S, we used to say it is a gas, it is a gas, it is a gas. Why do we have to mention that it is a gas? Consider this, I am having something like you can say acid. Okay, it is in the liquid form. Consider this, I am having one knife in my hand or something which can cut my hand. Until or unless I don't touch them, okay, I would not be getting harm. These objects are solid or liquid, which once placed on somewhere are not going to come to me and damage me. But the same objects, if it become airborne, for example, gas, like carbon monoxide gas, even if you like or even if you don't like to go over there, if you touch or if you don't touch, the gas will be automatically reaching to you. Okay, so that is why whenever we are talking about H2S and carbon monoxide, we used to mention all the time its physical form is a gas. Means in case if it leaks out, you must protect yourself because it will be ultimately reaching to you. This carbon monoxide is basically a byproduct of partial combustion. For example, poorly maintained boilers, and also one more thing, all of your internal combustion engines, these engines are basically producing the carbon monoxide, like generators or any kind of engine. Uh, your diesel, your even the electrical geysers, and your petrol engine. Okay, and especially on the site, because we are having the heavy equipment, and heavy equipment is generating a lot of carbon monoxide. That is, and because it can settle itself in the confined spaces in the excavation, that is why on the construction sites after 4 feet where it can settle itself, we are defining that after 4 feet the excavation becomes a confined space, and we may need to go with in the confined space by performing proper gas testing as well as gas monitoring over there. And what are the hazards? Inhalation hazard is there. You can get this gas inhaled. The very bad scenario about this gas is it is unstable molecule. It tries to convert itself into carbon dioxide. And once you inhale it, first important thing, if it is present in the atmosphere, it will try to displace oxygen, replace oxygen, or otherwise try to react itself with the oxygen or try to convert itself into carbon dioxide. If it converts itself into carbon dioxide, then it is good for us. Why? Because we are habitual to have that, and that will be staying down, and we would not be having enough or too much danger from carbon dioxide. But what it does, first, it removes the oxygen from the atmosphere. Second thing, because it has to react over there. Second thing, it once you inhale it inside you and you take it inside your lungs, it will be reacting with the oxygen which is already placed inside your body. So that is why it pulls a man down very early. Then another thing is that what it does, it converts inside the body. It converts itself in, especially when the red blood cell, they have to carry the oxygen. They are carrying the carbon monoxide. Once they carry the carbon monoxide, if there is already some oxygen placed, it will be converting itself into carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, which is acidic in nature. So you will be having acidic behavior, acidity, you can say, inside your body. That will be pulling down you, because if we are having acid, it attacks on your central nervous system. Okay, so this is the effect of carbon monoxide. And then prevents red blood cells transporting oxygen. This is, I just have explained. Chemical asphyxiation is low level asphyxiation, 0.005%. Means if we are having 50 ppm of carbon monoxide, you will be having the headache. 50 ppm is basically the threshold limit in which we call it the PEL. Okay, here it is mentioned 50 ppm. In Aramco system, we are mentioning 35 ppm. Okay, is the maximum limit which you can inhale. The next is at high level, that is 1.3%, or I guess it will be coming just 1300 ppm. Rapid unconsciousness and death. Over here in Aramco, we call it, we are having the limit 1000 ppm. Yes, Mr. Vijay.
But I want to know that what is that ppm? You mean that I understood the
Okay,
measurement.
very nice. Okay, sorry, ppm is basically parts per million. Okay, just like 35 ppm means just like 35 particles of carbon monoxide out of 1 million particles of the air.
Okay, it is overall a measurement.
Yeah, just consider, I give you very easy example of 35 ppm. Consider a football stadium, fill it up with water and just put 35 teaspoons of sugar over there. You would be having the idea that what it would be.
Oh, okay, understood.
It's very minor amount, very much minor amount, but yes, considering those 35 teaspoons of sugar, I ask you one question: does it create some kind of sweetness in that big amount of water? Of course, the answer would come no. Right?
Correct.
A football stadium filled up with water and only 35 teaspoons of sugar over there. Is there any kind of sweetness there? No. But in case of carbon monoxide, toxicity would be there. Okay, and the same is the scenario for H2S, where we have to understand that the PEL limit is 10 ppm. So this is all about carbon monoxide. What we have to do on the job site, how do we control it on the job site? First of all, in case if we are having some kind of gas system, that atmospheric testing is required, competent engineer or competent or authorized gas testers should be there who are performing the gas testing or gas monitoring. And specifically for design or construction of any kind of gas system, competent engineers are required. Next, maintenance and testing of boilers and flues. Flues are just like, you can say, chimneys. Okay. We have, during the maintenance and testing of boilers and flues, we must test that in case if we are having carbon monoxide over there or not. The next is we must be having good ventilation. LEV, local exhaust ventilation, is required for the workshop vehicle exhaust, so that in case if we are starting the vehicles inside the workshops, we must be exhausting the carbon monoxide from there. We must be throwing it from that point to out. And then setting of the equipment containing combustion engines, we must be having proper suitable places for the internal combustion engine, so that we can ventilate, we can remove the carbon monoxide from there. Carbon monoxide alarms should be there. Usually we are performing the gas testing and we are having the carbon monoxide alarms. And confined space entry protocols, controls should be defined. Proper protocols are there. Work permit system is there. We will be following the work permit system to get enter in the confined space, so that on the work permit system, because we can forget all these things on the work permit system, all these precautions would have been mentioned. And what we'll be doing, we will be taking all the prevention of precautions, and that would be protecting us. So this is all about carbon monoxide. Your car, the engines of your cars are emitting the carbon monoxide. And I used to give you the example of your MVPI, motor vehicle periodic inspection. If you guys are going for MVPI, which we call Fahasat Dori, okay, if you are going over there for the MVPI, you might have seen that they are inserting one sensor in the exhaust or the silencer of your vehicle, just to identify, make sure that your engine is not emitting carbon monoxide more than a limit which they would have already defined. And once you are getting that report, on that report it is clearly mentioned that carbon monoxide extraction from your engine is this, it is less than this, and there is references mentioned that for your engine, based on the power of the engine, for your engine it would be like, let's say 1%, let's say, and now you are having 0.9%. Okay, I mean these kind of scenarios would be mentioned over there on that report. So that is basically just to this example I just gave you because I want you to have an understanding about the carbon monoxide. One more example from the carbon monoxide, that usually in the winter season, people, what they do, they are burning some kind of stuffs inside their home, and they are not ventilating the home properly. If we are having burning process and we are having deficiency of oxygen, or oxygen is limited over there, which we say burning process in the limited supply of oxygen, will give you carbon monoxide. It will not give you carbon dioxide. As I mentioned, if it would be carbon dioxide, then we are okay with that. We are habitual to manage that. But for carbon monoxide, if it goes inside our body, it also causes suffocation or asphyxiation after 1.3% or 1300 ppm. Okay, so in case if we are having any kind in our home, if we are having any kind of engine, in case if we are having any kind of burning process, for example, in the homes where we are having the load shedding, people are having generators over there so that they can have the electricity. For example, we can have carbon monoxide. These things, generators or some kind of stuff, these should be placed in well ventilated area. So in case if we are having the generation of carbon monoxide, we should not be getting harm from carbon monoxide gas. I hope so. The point is, all the points are covered.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next is cement. Everyone knows what is cement, right? Used to make mortar and concrete. Okay, it is having its harmful effect. In case if it goes inside your eyes, you will be having the irritation. In case if you inhale it, you will be having the scratchy throat. That is what we call respiratory tract irritation. And then in case if it falls on your skin, for those workers who are working with cement, if you see their hands, cuts are there. Okay, why? Because it is dry. Once it gets dry, it will be sucking all the humidity from your body and from the skin, and it would be producing cuts over there. And yes, corrosive burns to skin on repeated prolonged contact, and it can also cause allergic dermatitis. So what are the typical controls? First of all, eliminating or reducing the exposure if possible. That is usually not possible in the construction. Okay, because we are constructing something, we are constructing the concrete walls. So of course that is not possible. Then what is the possibility or what is the solution then? In those scenarios, what we are doing, we are basically reducing the exposure. We are basically using the PPEs like gloves, dust mask, eye protection. Overall, we are wearing so that it should not be. Our body should not be getting exposed with the cement. And then a removal of contaminated clothing. Even those you might have seen that those guys who are working with the foundations or who are working in the easy words concrete foundations or concrete pillars, whenever they are having the concrete pourer come over there, they are giving the direction, they would be using disposable overalls. Whenever they are using whenever they are getting finished with their job, they are removing it and they are disposing it off. Disposal is of course we have to go for the requirement as per the environmental protection department. The next is we must be having good hygiene and washing skin on contact. For all those who are working with cement, they must wash their bodies. Their good hygiene is required before we are going to eat. For example, in the lunch break, if we are going to have meal, we must wash our hands properly so that the chemical which is over here, it should not get inside our body through food. So these are the control measures for the cement. Now we are going to go for the Legionella bacteria, which is usually a very ignored one and very powerful bacteria and commonly available on almost all the construction site. How it is growing over there? What is Legionella bacteria? You would be having eye wash stations. You would be having your emergency showers where we are storing the water. We are not flushing it because all the time we think that because we have to use these in cases of emergencies. So that is why water should be over there. Okay, otherwise what we have to do, we have to you can say we have to bleed them in the night time or at the end of the shift when no one is over there. And on the next day we need to refill these kind of equipments, for example emergency shower or the eye wash station. What happens actually when you fill these equipment with the water stays over there. Okay, if the temperature is from at approximately 10 to 15 degrees up to 40 degrees centigrade, this bacteria grows really fast over there. Okay, and once we are having this bacteria, if or in case of an emergency, you are taking the shower, this bacteria can become airborne and it can be inhaled. Once if it inhaled, what will be happening? We would be having flu-like fever followed by pneumonia, which we call Legionnaire's disease. It is just like pneumonia. So this could be occurring even we are taking the emergency shower. Usually the people I have seen them, they are, after getting the shower, they are relating it with the chemical which was splashed on their body. But actually it would be because of Legionella bacteria. So this is water loving soil bacteria, and it infests, means what, if we are having water fill systems, like as I mentioned, emergency shower or eye wash stations, for example. If water sprayed to form a mist creates inhalation risk that could be inhaled, and flu-like fever would be the outcome, which we call pneumonia. What are the management control? We must be having a proper risk assessment, because the workers usually they don't know about it. And maybe you may be aware about this fact that sometimes with the emergency shower, closer to the emergency shower, workers sometime, if there is some kind of pipe or something like that, once they are filling it, they are washing their hands even, and they are refilling it. Okay, in those scenarios, it can also be becoming airborne. Workers usually do not know about Legionella bacteria. We can have uh, days lost because of this one, because of Legionella bacteria. So what are the controls? Risk assessment should be there. In TBTs, you must communicate that you guys do not have to use this water only in case of an emergency. And this water has to be flushed after every like 2 days, 3 days, based on the risk assessment, because it grows with the temperature. So based on the temperature, if the temperature remains less than 10 degree, no worries. If it goes more than 40 degree, then even no worries. So a written control scheme and review of control measures should be defined properly. Nominated responsible persons are there. We must nominate them. We must make them responsible regarding this kind of scenario. What are the practical control? Avoid water temperature between 20 degrees centigrade and 45 degrees centigrade. I was telling you 10, it is 20 degrees centigrade and 45 degrees centigrade. Avoid water stagnation. Water should not be getting uh, stored or standing on one place. Okay. And then avoid using material that can harbor bacteria and provide them with nutrients so that this bacteria can grow up. Control the release of water spray. In case if we can do that, we will do that. In case if we cannot, then we will keep the water moving. Water stagnation we will not allow. Keep water storage system and equipment clean. Okay, use water some kind of chemical treatment where in case or in case if it is necessary, we will be going for some kind of chemical treatment. Your environmental protection department usually deals with these kind of things. Okay, and they are telling about these things usually. Carry out a water sampling and analysis. Okay, and then ensure correct and safe operation and maintenance of water system. These are the usual things. Next is leptospira bacteria. But before we go to leptospira bacteria, let me ask you, in case if you are aware about Legionella bacteria, if all the things over here are cleared or not. Yes, Mr. Vijay.
Sir, my concern, I understood that what you explained here and all everything, but some scenario we have to store the water. Without storing the water, there is no other means to avoiding that. That kind of say, example, domestic water for a building. We in an overhead tank or somewhere else we are the temperature. Of course, the temperature will be between 15 degrees Celsius to 15 or 45 degree. So this scenario, of course, this Legionella bacteria will be bleeding there. I mean, breeding there. So how we can avoid this kind of situations and all? Is it what the control measures what we do? What
Right.
normally do? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Got that. I got your question. The question is basically, Mr. Ramesh, I will, if you allow me. Okay, let me, Mr. Ramesh, come up on the mic and then explain if you are about to explain?
Legionella, normally we used to do only for the drinking water. Not in because as per the health risk assessment, the recommendation may come based on the HRA, the Legionella test will come. Otherwise, normal water test and all, we used to do TDS, pH values, like this normal standard categories. This is what my experience, just I am sharing.
Agree. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh. Yes, we are having different kind of tests for the normal drinking water. Guys, over here, the concern, as I mentioned, especially the concern is about water stagnation. Water should not be standing on one place. Okay, so that this bacteria can grow up over there. For the normal tanks which you are talking about, Mr. Vijay, like our water storage tank which we are having on the roofs of our house, we don't have water storage over there. Water storage is temporary over there. It would not be getting stagnant over there for longer times. Water will come, the old water will be released down, the new water will come, old water will release down. Okay, so water stagnation is not going to occur over there, so there is very less chance of this bacteria to grow up.
Okay, noted. But even a continuous flow of water also, the bigger kind of tanks, it will
Yeah.
be it will not, we will not be using a 50%
It will not be growing up over there. For the water, if the water is going to be flown over there, if that is what I mentioned, that at the end of the shift you have to flush it out here, then next day you can refill it. Like, but this is usually not possible, so we can use for the, I mean, we can go for the water testing, and we can go for some kind of cleaning, chemical cleaning over there, like we are putting some kind of chemical so that we can you can say the chlorination of the water.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
No problem. But remember, if we are having the water flow, we don't have to worry about it. It's all about stagnation, that water is if it is stored somewhere. And that is why I mentioned the example of your emergency showers, where we are storing the water and it stays there. Eye wash station, if we are having the water over there, it will be stored over there, because we are not going to put the pure water over there in the eye wash station. Usually the people are filling the normal usual drinking water over there. So if it is over there on this, if it is placed outside on the site, I mean, the bacteria can grow up because it would be stagnating over there. That's the thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are going to talk about the Leptospira bacteria. There is one message. Okay, Saha, only 2 more minutes. I am also concerned with Salah. Give me only two to 3 more minutes. Let me complete the topic, then we will be taking the break. The next is Leptospira bacteria. Leptospira bacteria is basically, you know about it, that sometimes we are having some kind of rats, mice, cattle, and horses. Their urine is containing these kind of bacteria. Okay, it can spread through some kind of contaminated water, which is in, if the contaminated water comes in contact with some kind of cuts, grazes, so it can spread over there. These animals like rats, mice, cattle, and horse, of course, they are animals, so they would be doing urine anywhere. Usually, the rats or the mice, if these are in our tanks, water tanks, if they are doing this kind of acts, then of course we can have these kind of bacteria over there. Mostly those occupations which are, for example, dairy farmers, sewage worker, water sportsmen, as well as the instructors, they are at risk. What happens over here in, if we are getting infected with this kind of bacteria, you will be having flu-like symptoms, jaundice, liver damage, which we call Weil's disease. Okay, so these kind of symptoms would be appearing. What are the typical control? Preventing the rat infestation, good housekeeping, pest control. Regarding the rats, if you are having the rats on your construction site, the first thing, other than Leptospira bacteria, the first thing you will be having, all of your cables are gone. Right or wrong? If it
Right,
happened
sir.
with someone, all of your cables would be gone. Underground wiring, anything, they will eat it. This is their habit. Okay, so that is why we must go for the pest control. Specifically, you must be concerned about the rats or mice. Okay, and then the next is good personal hygiene. Of course, PPE, especially gloves, needs to be worn. We must need to cover our cuts and grazes in case if we are having in our skin, and then issuing at a risk card to the workers who are at risk, so that yes, they should be aware that we are working, we are dealing with the chemical, with these kind of scenarios. For example, if we are dealing with with the water area, where we can have these kind of bacteria, so they should be issued with one card, that at risk card. They must be aware that we have to take necessary precautions to protect themselves. Next is silica. Silica is basically the component of rock. We call it quartz. We are having the watches of quartz, which is found in quarries, pottery, and in construction industry. Everywhere we are having here in Gulf. Inhalation hazards, respirable crystalline silica immediately during the sandstorm. If we are having the sandstorm, we inhale it. What happens after that? Or usually in windy season, if we are having winds, people, they are inhaling, and after that you will be having so many sicknesses, because it will be giving you respiratory irritation. It will go inside your mouth, inside your throat, and it will make everything dry over there. Okay, and these are basically causes scar tissues to form in lungs, and if it goes inside your lungs, it would be causing scars, or you can say some kind of cuts over there. Okay, so what are the control alternative work methods should be used in case if we are having it? Usually we are going for the dust control, right? Dust suppression by water, and this is, by the way, happening on all kind of construction sites, that on daily basis, in the morning, afternoon, perhaps depending upon the area, as well as the dust, as well as the condition of the weather. Depending upon the scenario, you are having dust suppression by water, and one water tank keeps on moving just because it is spraying the water down, so that the dust would be suppressed down. And by the way, regarding the project side, if we can suppress it, because we had this concern on our last project, in case if we are having it on our project controlled by control over there on the premises of your project, but if the windy situation is there, it will be coming out from the side areas. So what we have to do in those scenarios, we must be we must be having the protection, which we call respiratory protection equipment should be used. Health surveillance should be conducted for all the people who can be affected. And of course, if we are in the workshop, then local exhaust ventilation must be used over there. Our next topic is the wood dust. In wood dust, once we are cutting the wood, of course, you can smell something in the carpentry shop. That is basically, the smell is because of the wood particles which are becoming the airborne. So you smell them. Okay, there are basically you are inhaling that. There is inhalation hazard which causes the irritation, may cause asthma, and asthmatic people, they are very concerned about it. Some hardwoods can cause cancer if it is small particles, if it goes inside your lungs. Of course, once your lung is damaged, of course, immediately you don't know. After some time, once the injury would be increased, it would be appearing in the form of the cancer. So some hardwoods which are hard for the lungs to absorb, or to convert it into fiber, as we discussed in the same chapter, that final defense is to convert the particle into the fibers. But if it cannot, then it would cause the cancer. So what are the control? Local exhaust ventilation. In case if we are going to clean the area, we can vacuum it rather than sweep it. So if we are sweeping it, the dust on the ground, what will be happening? It will be becoming the airborne. So we are going to vacuum that. Then a respiratory protective equipment should be used, so that you can protect your breathing, and health surveillance should be there for the people who are working in the carpentry shop. Their health surveillance should be conducted time to time. So these are different agents which we just have discussed, and we are having these agents in our usually usual life when we are on the workplace, in our routine workplace life, or we call them occupational specific agents like asbestos, different kinds of asbestos we discussed, where it was being used, what are the diseases it is occurring, how we can control it using some kind of wet method by putting the water on the wall, throwing the water on the wall, and then breaking the wall if it contains the asbestos. Then we discussed about the bloodborne viruses, what are different bloodborne viruses, how these are going to transmit from body to body. And by the way, regarding the bloodborne virus, everybody is very well trained when we have passed through the corona age. So we know that how bloodborne viruses are being transmitted from person to person. Then we discussed about the carbon monoxide, in which my main concern was about all the engines, or about all the process of like hot work activities. I did not mention that. For example, if you are performing the welding operation and there is no improper ventilation, only the limited supply of oxygen is there, then carbon monoxide could also be generated over there, because fire is over there and we are having limited supply of oxygen. So in carbon monoxide, my main concern was about the woods which we are burning in our homes or wherever we need the heat. If the burning process is not in the well ventilated area, or if we are placed the generator not in the well ventilated area, closer to the excavation, we should not be placing any kind of generator, or heavy equipments should not be parked closer to the excavation or in the confined space, because these exhaust gases, including carbon monoxide, and that would be settling down in the excavation or otherwise, can settle itself in the confined spaces, so which is dangerous for us. So we are concerned with that. We have to go for the proper ventilation. Then we discussed about the cement. What is cement? What are the effects? What are its health effects? How we can control them? Then we discussed about Legionella bacteria. Okay, we were concerned about the stagnation of the water, and questions were there. We discussed them, how we can protect ourselves. Then we discussed about the Leptospira bacteria. Okay, after that we discussed about the silica and wood dust. What are these things? What are their hazards, and how we can control these hazards? So guys, this is our chapter 7 or element 7, okay, in which we started discussing from the physical form of the chemical biological agents which are hazardous to health, and we identified different kind of the effects, like acute effect, chronic effect, how the chemicals are going to affect our body, what are the classification of chemical. Then we discussed the main routes of entry, defense system of our body. Okay, then we discussed about the hazardous substances, and from where we are going to get the information about the hazardous substances, like from on product label, material safety data sheet, as well as legal guidelines are over there. Okay, and after that we discussed about the 8 principles of good hygiene, that how we can protect ourselves. Then we move to the local exhaust ventilation as well as the dilution ventilation. After that, our today's topic, which was we just have a revised, and where we discussed about some kind of chemical as well as specific biological agents which could be present on our job site. So it was our lesson, and our element 7. I hope so it would have been well understood. In case if there is any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will be having a break. Okay, break for Salah, and everyone knows what he has to do. Any question, guys?
No, sir.
No.
No,
Okay, okay, guys,
well
thank you so
understood.
much. So we are already late. So let's have a break for Salah. Okay, as usual, 30 minutes, and after that we will be back and we will be starting our new chapter, that is element 8. We should be on time because that would be a lengthy chapter. So we will be discussing that after the break. So let's have a break, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.